When I think of England, I think of three things. Big Ben losing to America at literally everything.
It's called soccer.
And Edgar frickin' Wright. This man single-handedly made me want to visit Great Britain through his films, truly utilizing the culture of the country as well as the crew and the cast to harbor so much life into his films. And those are only the British ones. This dude's made some really good American movies as well. He also almost made Ant-Man, so yeah, there's that. Do with that information what you want. Edgar Wright has established himself as one of the best and most unique filmmakers working in Hollywood today, creating a fast-paced style with innovative editing and filmmaking techniques that I often see other filmmakers try to replicate but never fully duplicate. His films are amazing, inspiring, and I can't say that there's a single one I don't enjoy watching, but there are some that I like better than others, which is why today's video is titled Edgar Wright Ranked. And this will only be the mainline films, no documentaries, although I did hear that The Spark Rose was great. I haven't watched it yet. But yeah, let's get right into it. Fistful of Fingers was Edgar Wright's first movie, filmed on a budget of $15,000, and because of that, it certainly feels like the most experimental and raw version of what this filmmaker would eventually become. It feels like a first film, because, you know, it is a first film. And although there is evidence of the over-the-top comedy and action that you'd come to find in Wright's future work, it just doesn't really stand up to any of those films. It's still an incredibly impressive work for a small budget, and definitely one that should be studied by aspiring filmmakers who are trying to make movies for very, very cheap. I know, I'm a fucking moron, I get it. Hot Fuzz is the greatest movie of all time, and I should just throw myself off a cliff, but hear me out. I liked Hot Fuzz a lot. I just had some issues with it that made me like it less than the 5 films that I ranked ahead of it. Let me explain. First of all, in the Cornetto trilogy, this is the one that has by far the worst lead character. Not to say Simon Pegg is bad here, he's actually really, really good. His character is just significantly more obtuse and one-layered than his characters in the other 2 movies of the trilogy. I just did not feel as connected to what he was doing with this film or how this character was written. And I feel as though the mystery of the film is also really predictable, at least it was for me, and because of that predictableness of it, it just never really engaged me and brought me in the way that I believe that the film wants to, and the way that the film actually gets other people. The action is fun, the comedy lands, the location of West Country Village is a character in and of itself, and it really does work a lot. It contains an ensemble of really interesting personalities and great characters. Everyone does a good job here, specifically Paddy Considine, and yes, I'm only referencing him because of his performance as King Viserys in House of the Dragon. Oh my god, it was legendary.
You chose to celebrate your own rise! Laughing with your whores and your leg spittles!
This is a fine movie. It's just the one that I would rewatch last out of the 6 main films of his. Edgar Wright's newest film, Last Night in Soho, is one of the best movies of 2021. In fact, I thought it was his best movie that he had ever made when I first left the theater after my first screening. The incredibly vibrant look, the great performances from Thomasin McKenzie, Matt Smith, and of course Anya Taylor-Joy, the use of music, the great editing, and a third act that I somehow liked the first time I watched it. Yeah, the third act of this movie is kind of trash. Something I realized on rewatches, and although Diana Rigg is awesome and she's so great as the character that she plays, and I absolutely loved her in Game of Thrones, her character just doesn't entirely work at the end of this movie. I love the first couple acts of this film though, it's just every time I watch it I can feel the third act coming, like...
Oh, you can smell the shit from 5 miles away.
In a world overstuffed with mediocre zombie films and storytelling, it's quite surprising when I watch a film that's both original in the genre as well as totally fitting within Edgar Wright's mold of filmmaking in general. This film is wild, with Simon Pegg giving an unforgettable and hilarious performance in a film that establishes the ridiculous nature of the zombie invasion while never failing to deliver creative and engaging action. The story here, although being really, really silly, actually has some depth to it and has a clear theme and a message that I did enjoy. And man, the use of music in this film is so good, something that you could really find in all of Edgar Wright's films, but I really noticed it heavy here. This film is also arguably the funniest of Wright's films, in my opinion, with certain scenes having me laughing like King George when he heard those lowly colonies had declared their independence. Absolutely hilarious, am I right? Overall, this film slaps really hard and is definitely at the top of my list all time for zombie films. Could be a future list, by the way.
Now that the truth is just a rule by you.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is the wildest movie I think I've ever seen in my entire life. The entire film deconstructs the idea of relationships and the toxic nature that comes from past failed attempts at love, and it does it in the most action-packed, colorful, and joyous way possible. This film is explosive, filled with creative music pieces, kick-ass fight scenes, both hilarious and off-putting performances that I absolutely loved, and an LSD-laced edit that made me feel like I was moving at light speed. The whole cast here is amazing, with Michael Cera giving a legendary performance, as well as Mary Elizabeth Winstead giving, in my opinion, her career best. The standout for me here is Brie Larson, who in her limited screen time proves exactly why she is an Academy Award level winning actress that Marvel should give more to when they're writing her character of Captain Marvel, because what they did in that film made her look like a shitty actress, and she is not a shitty actress. Just watch this movie. She's so good. Then there's Kieran Culkin, and I really miss Succession. Overall, this film is incredible, and even though I don't entirely love the ending of the movie and the resolution, it's still a film that stands to be extremely rewatchable, and oh my god, they're making an anime about it, and I cannot wait for that. Baby Driver was Edgar Wright's most surprising film, taking a simple concept of a socially awkward getaway driver experiencing a sort of coming-of-age type story and injecting all of Edgar Wright's weirdness and masterfulness into that basic story. The way this movie utilizes music is so original, as the beats of every single used song are directly integrated with every layer of the script and the edit, becoming one of the most important cogs in the Baby Driver machine. The car chases, the action scenes are Wright's best that he has ever done, and John Hamm plays an incredibly intimidating character who is actually, I mean, he's so terrifying, by far my favorite villain in any of Wright's films. The comedy here works really, really good when it is there, even though it's probably his least comedic film. The love story works. The guy who might be a pedophile was also kind of good in this movie. Ansel, who I know a lot of people don't really like and don't appreciate his acting ability, does a really good job here, despite the role being kind of, one-noted. This movie in a lot of ways was Edgar Wright's version of the Ryan Gosling film Drive, but Baby Driver, I think, stands on its own as the more unique and more intriguing of those two films. Just being a lot more colorful, a lot more action-packed, a lot more just the music, everything about it. Baby Driver is great. Go watch it. This might be a hot take for some, because most people I've seen rank all of Edgar Wright's movies usually rank The World's End near the bottom, and definitely the worst of the Cornetto trilogy. But I just rewatched this film recently, and not only do I see it as the strongest of that trilogy, I think it's by far Edgar Wright's best film when it comes to completely landing its themes and delivering the complete package of characters, action, comedy, and a perfect third act. This film has Simon Pegg's best character in any of these Edgar Wright films, with him playing Gary King, a former high school god, this really popular high school kid, who's never been able to move on from the glory days of high school. He reunites his four friends, all of which have moved on with their lives and have found a new path in life outside of high school, to complete an epic pub crawl that they failed at 20 years earlier. Through his journey, we really get fleshed out conversations and themes about the meaning of growing old, of moving on in life, humanity's purpose as a whole, our usefulness to the world, why are we here, finding our own identity through life. These themes match with the incredible twists and turns that turn the movie from a simple pub crawling, adventure to sci-fi madness, allows for this film to be a total package when it comes to Wright's filmmaking and what he usually does in his movies. The film is also ultra hilarious, with the third act including some of the funniest writing that Edgar Wright has put out, and the ending of the film being my absolute favorite of any of these, delivering a satisfying conclusion to all of these characters while also opening the door for what I hope will one day be a really interesting sequel to explore. Like, I'm not sure I need a sequel to any of these movies, but this one actually pitches an idea where it's like, wow, you can make a really unique standalone story coming from the end of this one, and it would be a sequel, but in a way it would be its own thing, and I think that's something that I really kind of hope Edgar Wright does at some point. Overall, I really love this film, and maybe that's just because of recency bias, because I did just watch it, but you know what? Fuck you, okay? It's number one for now, it's number one on this list, it's number one in this video, and that's all I have to say. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What are your rankings of Edgar Wright's movies? Leave that down below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Make sure to also turn on notifications so you can see everything I post when I post it. And I will see you guys in the next video.